Keith Jones.
Rick, what's up, baby?
Did you see that? I snuck that in because he's always doing that first, and I never get a chance.
That's right. Well, you're pretty fast on the draw there.
I timed it perfectly.
You did time it perfectly. That was
It's a
great.
partnership, brother.
It is.
All right.
It is. So what we thought we'd do today was we do some questions that we ask each other. We have no idea what the questions are going to be that the other person is going to ask, and this would be an exercise in vulnerability. And tell them why we want to do this exercise.
We were thinking about looking at people that we admire, and we were comparing a list of people that we like, and there's so many men and women that we're both inspired by, but they all seem to have the same kinds of qualities at the end of the day. That was a sense of gratitude, number one. Number two, a feeling like they weren't any better than anybody else and were struggling with a lot of things in their own lives. And thirdly, that they have this sense of inner peace and calmness and non-judging that we really like and admire. And all of that seems to be somehow connected to vulnerability and being okay with life and honesty and your own warts and all of the things that we think we have to hide from other people when we really don't.
Right. Okay, so
here's so I was trying to see what questions I could ask this guy, because on the surface he looks like he's all together, right? He's got it together with his career, he's got his own business, he's got his degree, he's an engineer, he used to be a stockbroker, handsome, fit. He's got the world by the butt, right? So I'm thinking, okay, what is this guy's? What might be a weakness that we don't all see? So here's my first question to him. What do you think people would be surprised to learn about you that they don't know that really is a hurt within you still?
like, okay, what was something that people would think that would be surprised that I still struggle with or have a pain over?
Right.
It would be like you said, maybe some people think that I'm super successful and everything comes easy to me, and it doesn't. I work for it, and I've been really fortunate, but I'd probably see that the fear of I have to remind myself of not being afraid to fail, because of the unrealized potential. It's like the thing I talked about in a few podcasts before. It's like if I have a fear, it's of not living up to my potential.
So when someone criticizes you, for example, whether it's about your career or how you're handling other people or how you're handling your life or your finances, how does that land on you? How do you deal with criticism?
It depends on what it is. If it's something that I care a lot about, or something which means that I'm attached to it, it's two things two things I go through, depending on what it is. If it's something that I've already worked on specifically with my meditation, with my personal development work, then I handle it pretty good. I can put it in perspective. But if it's something I'm still struggling with or I haven't come to terms with, then it would be really tough for me to deal with. And I'd probably try to explain it away in a way.
To explain it away to yourself?
To myself and to the other person. Well, to the other person, I probably wouldn't say anything who was giving me feedback, or it would land on me as a criticism. Because if you find something wrong with me, the ego is always going to take it as criticism. So I got to let my higher self step in and say, it's just feedback. You can do whatever you want to with it. But that would be it. So let's say, I'm trying to think of an example.
Well, let me ask you what your process would be. So if I come up and I say something that lands on you, not only as criticism, but maybe as insulting, because it's just so completely off base. Do you get defensive about that? Is that something that creates a defense in you, or do you just let it go, or how do you cope with that? Let's say, for example, okay, hey Keith, that was a pretty crappy spin class today, man. What's the story? You weren't motivated? I didn't feel like you were even into it? What's the story?
My first reflex would absolutely be well, you can contribute to the class too. Like, you were sitting there riding, why weren't you cheering somebody else on? or like, I tried to pick good songs. You can't please everybody, and that was a good song. When you listen to the lyrics, I would totally turn the tables and make them wrong for it. Now I don't do that though, because I'm conscious of it. So now I'm like, thank you for the feedback. I'll do better. If my energy was down, I'll look at myself and, I'll get here a little bit earlier, kind of get into the right mindset to deliver a better class. I wouldn't do that now. Not now. Last year, but now no, I wouldn't, because I've gotten a lot of feedback in class. With the great members of the community that we have, to where a song I played they didn't like. The beat was wrong. It was something in the song that part of the hook wasn't. It repeated itself. It sounded stupid or whatever, and so I just taken that feedback, and that song hasn't been back in rotation, But so that part hasn't done it. But if you gave me something like, I'll give you an example. Okay. So I had to go through this process. I've gotten faster at it. So I was volunteering at the hospital, and I had to do the scenario that they had, and I did the scenario on last week. Was the first time we did it, and I'm listening to how other people that have the same role as I do in different scenarios, how their acting abilities are coming out, because we're trying to help educate the staff. So we're doing these scenarios that they may come in contact with in the medical field. And so as we were doing the scenario, I kind of did some ad-libbing. It was well received. I got good feedback from it. But then when I showed up yesterday to do a scenario with different students who were coming through for the first time, I was told, hey, let's tone it down a little bit. We just want you to be indifferent and neutral in your role. And so my first reaction was, like, hold on, like, you guys aren't clear. Last time you thought that, it was Oscar worthy. This time you're telling me to, like, take it down 1,000. I'm like, which is it? But I caught myself and been like, and I was like, focus not on yourself. Don't make this about you. Make it about what's going to deliver the best product, the best experience for the student. And so and once I did like that, it was just feedback about, okay, absolutely, I can do that. I can modify it, and as we go on, to let them know that I was open to it. I always say thank you when people give me feedback now.
That's good.
No matter what it is, I say thank you.
Yeah.
That lets them know I'm open, and I said thank you. So as I'm going through the scenario, can you whisper in my ear or let me know if that's, if I'm spot on, if I need to modify, do it a little bit differently. So I'm just kind of different with that kind of feedback now. But no question, the first reaction on certain things is to get defensive, explain it away, and make you wrong for it.
Yeah, that's right, and not take responsibility for it, which is something that you've learned how to do.
Right.
And make it a win-win for yourself and for another person. I think there are times, maybe you don't agree with this, but I think that it's important to recognize that there are times when some things you just have to let go. The criticism comes, and it's not justified, or it just doesn't resonate at all. And I think the way to handle that is just to say thanks, and if you know in your heart that it's wrong and it doesn't apply to you, great, move on. But I think we also always need to be looking very close to see whether it is wrong.
Right.
Often it isn't.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I got a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so this question is kind of like not along the lines you asked me, but so I have a family member right now who is not doing too well. Is my aunt, and her health is declining, and she's at the point right now, from what my family members are telling me, that she's not doing a really good job of taking care of herself, and they think it's something that's going on emotionally and mentally, and so they're providing a lot of care, and my family, the women in my family live late, man, like late 80s, 90s, and so she's about to be 75, so, I mean, that's a lot of 10 years of, theoretically, of great living that she could still be doing. But, she is where she is right now, and I love my aunt. She's amazing. She was always nice to me when I was growing up. So my question is when, you lost your parents, and how did you go through that? What was that like, for you?
Well, I lost my mom almost 15 years before I lost my dad, so I had a lot of experience in that 15 years that helped me deal with my dad's passing easier than I did with my mom's. I think the first parent who passes, regardless of which one you may be closer to, is a shock. And when the second parent dies, I think someone said, and I believe it's true, that you really feel like you're an orphan, that you are left on your own for better or worse, and your two biggest supporters are gone, and
Right.
you don't have that. So I guess the grief part of it never goes away. I still grieve for my folks. I don't think that it's a good idea to ever suppress grief. I think it ought to be something that you just agree and acknowledge as part of life, and you have to get through it. In your aunt's case, I think you've got a little different situation. That is that there may be things that can be done to help her extend life, or to get better nutrition, or to have some exercise, or to have an attitude shift that would allow her to take control of her own life. I don't know what that is.
Right.
Everybody's unique. You probably do, since you have a close relationship with her, or your mom, who's
Right.
her sister, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so your mom and you probably have some insights about how to do that. In terms of how you deal with death, or someone who is close to death, or someone who's declining,
Right.
I think the only thing that really helps is compassion, and just feeling as strong as you can feel in your own life about them, and reflecting that back on you, because we're all going to be there. We're all going to be in that same
Absolutely.
situation, one way or the other. And maybe tomorrow, it may be 20 years, it's going to happen though. And so I think that compassion about the human life cycle is really important, and to realize that realize that there's no guilt associated with it. We want to make sure that we're helping, but we also don't want to beat ourselves up if things don't improve, even though we're helping.
Right. So, to follow up with that, and I don't know what the relationship was with your parents, whether both parents were like, you couldn't ask for better parents, they were ideal. Our parents are who they are. But maybe you had parents who were just like, man, my mom and dad were super affectionate, super encouraging, loving. There was no, like, they didn't bring their own stuff to my childhood. They were just amazing. Or maybe, like in my case, my stepfather had his own struggle and journey, and back when I was a kid all the way till my 30s, I just looked at him with such disdain, and my view of him was just so negative. It was so unloving, and that all shifted, and I now have nothing but compassion for him. So if he would have died early on, that's how he would have died. Fortunately, I was able to shift. He stayed the same. I shifted. So now I just see I got nothing but love for him. So when your parents passed away,
But before you leave that, that's a very important thing, because what I think you're saying is that the pain of holding on to hatred for somebody else, or even though you're right, even if he was beating you, or he was an alcoholic and he didn't treat you properly, you had every right to feel the way you felt, which was hate or contempt for him. That contempt and that hate carries with it its own sting. There's a barb in there holding you back. There's a barb that's pulled, and you got to get rid of that before you can live your own life in a free way.
Absolutely.
And I think when you let that go, didn't that improve your own life?
My life improved because I didn't have the weight of that with me, and it was replaced with love for him, like love and compassion, big time for him.
Yeah.
And so, in the case with your parents when they passed away, like how did they? Where were you at in your life? Was it? Were both parents very loving to you, and you grew up and there was no like browbeating or stuff like that as you were growing up, and so it was, how was it for you?
There's a great quote about this. I can't remember the whole quote, but it's something along the lines of, "Who is the child with no complaint?" Everybody thinks their parents didn't understand them, or they got a raw deal from one or the other, or you didn't get whatever you want. I don't have any of that. My parents were solid working class people, but my parents really went out of their way to make sure that I had a great education, everything that I needed to be successful, lots of support. They tried to protect me from what they thought would be harmful things to me.
Right.
And I really, really hadn't, I had such a golden childhood, I can't tell you, all-American neighborhood, playing ball, nothing goofy in my life at all. I also, at the time when my mom passed, who was first, had gone through a lot of death in my family. I had lost a grandfather who lived in the next room from us. He was a boarder. My uncle, who lived in another room next to us, who was a boarder. I had my aunt die. I mean, I had a lot of experience with death before my experience with my parent. That didn't prepare me all that well, but at least I understood the feeling
Right.
And I could cope with that feeling, and I still had the other parent to rely on. So my
Right.
dad and I became even closer because of it.
Got you.
But grief, again, I think grief is something that's natural to life, and you shouldn't fight it. You shouldn't suppress it. It'll take as long as it takes to get through it.
Right.
And you can't listen to anybody who
Yeah.
says you should be over it by now.
Exactly.
I mean, it may take you, I'm still not over it in some ways, right? It's been
Absolutely.
25
Absolutely.
years.
Yeah, for sure. So, what's the next question you got for me?
Okay, the other question I was going to ask about you is, if you had one thing to change about yourself right now, even though you're doing a lot of work on yourself and you're trying to be a better person all the time, if there's one thing you could immediately change like that, have the magic wand and do it, what would it be?
If there's one thing I could change about myself right now, what would it be?
It can't have anything to do with more weight in the squat rack.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll make it something. It would be something that wasn't physical. It would be. If I could change something for myself right now, what would it be? I'm trying to think, a greater capacity to more effectively contribute.
Oh,
To,
wow.
I mean, like if I could figure out like what are, you know how it's like some athletes who are at the top of their game, but maybe there's one thing or two things or several things that they're missing to be even the fullest realization of their talent.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like, hey, she is an amazing track star, but here's the thing that is in this person's way that's holding them back. You know, they don't eat properly. Or let's say that this other person is has amazing business acumen, that they would go to the moon, but they have this self-sabotaging behavior that they do. So for me, if whatever this thing is that I'm doing or not doing that's making me inefficient, to be even better at it, a better communicator, I wouldn't say marketer, but a person who can relate to people in a more effective way so that they realize their full potential. But I want it, it's kind of selfish, I want whatever their full potential is for it to be a benefit to humanity. So something that's not self-serving exclusively, I mean, of course, I want them to win too, but I want it to be something that effectively contributes to all of humankind. If I could figure out what that was that I'm doing that's inefficient and make it whole so that I can more effectively inspire other people to tap into their own greatness, that's what I would want to do.
Do you really feel like there's a sense of inefficiency about anything that you're doing right now? I mean, I don't see that. I see that more like, you know, we're you know, we've got a pretty small little audience here. We've got a pretty small group of people that we can be effective with. And it sounds like what you want to do is to be able to take that to a bigger audience or to a bigger stage and be able to help people.
Yeah, I mean,
you're not inefficient in what you're doing, right?
But you know, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, like
that's true.
3 years ago, you know, I've been eating the way that I eat for almost 20 years now. I've tightened it up even more. I haven't missed a workout in over 25 years. Well, I've never missed a workout, so I don't miss workouts. Even when I'm injured, I'm in the gym doing what I can. So, but I've added sleep to the mix, you know, to where I'm getting a solid 7 hours of sleep every night, and that's really helped me be more efficient because for the present moment, I'm not tired of medicating myself on caffeine and energy drinks, anything like that. Like I'm fully like present. So that's gotten better, but I didn't know how big an issue that was before. And then I work on my mindset every single day. So, and that was something that happened after a breakup and some business challenges that I didn't have in the mix. So who knows what's out there right now that I'm like, you know, that can take me to the next level so that I can more effectively contribute. I mean, giving to others is like so important to me. Like I just really want to make a positive contribution to the world.
Yeah,
So
well, it's true, and you walk the talk.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question for you.
Okay.
Okay, my question for you is that I think about this a lot. There was a time in my life where I was driven by achievement, egocentric things, looking good, having a nice car, house, caring about what other people think, even though I would say that I didn't. What made you transition from that in your legal practice to now to where you let you let that go, you know, to the extent to where it wasn't driving you anymore. You know, because I see so many people right now, and I'm not judging them, I'm just observing, and they're still out there fighting this race of, you know, the gladiator sport in their business, and, you know, I gotta destroy the competition so that I come out on top, and this means more money, more this, or the next level, or I gotta go out and get a bigger house, even though the house they have right now is great, or, like, what made you transition from that to this peaceful person that I get to hang out with all the time, man?
Disillusion. It was totally disillusion for me. I realized that all of the things that I had been chasing were illusory. You know, your looks are gonna go, you're gonna get old. You can do what you can to feel good and to protect your health, but it's a losing battle. A big house is just nothing to me but more responsibility and more weight, and creates more pain, creates more striving, creates more of what I don't want. I want inner peace, I want few possessions, I want good relationships, I want love in my life, I want to be in nature. And none of those goals are consistent with striving and traffic and working hard and building a lot of hours and winning cases and all of the rest. So, but don't get carried away. I'm still very much concerned with having nice things. I've got some new shoes on I'm wearing today, and I'm real happy about it.
Right.
I mean, but I think you have to be careful about going. I don't think you ever get past the point as a human being of being acquisitive. We're always looking to acquire. And I think that's partly evolutionary because acquisitions, weapons, for example, kept us protected. So I think there's a natural, in a lot of ways, a lot of evolutionary reasons why we're the way we are. But that also interferes with our inner peace. And so for me, the inner peace is where you start, not with the things. The inner peace is where you start. Okay, what's consistent with that? What can I bring in with that? So that means people who are negative, I don't want them around.
Right.
If it's going to be a contentious, very difficult lawsuit, unless I'm willing to play in that arena, that game, and that's how I look at it, it's more like a role play than it is who I am myself. Unless I'm willing to do that, I don't take the case. If it's a situation where there's a lot of money at stake, I just assume not deal with it, because people who are involved with money are myopic and they tend to look at things totally different than the way I do. But it's a process too, Keith. I mean, I think as you age, a lot of this stuff becomes clear.
Right.
A lot of what we do is based on illusion. It's I can't say that forcefully enough. Illusion is the big Achilles heel for a human being.
I agree. So you have one more question for me?
I do. I have a lot more questions for you, but here's one more. Suppose that you were in a situation where you had to choose between friendship, let's say, and a friendship that was solid and strong, say Tim and I. You had to choose between that and your family for some reason. How would you reconcile that choice? How would you make that choice? What factors would go into?
And I had to make the choice?
You had to make the choice. Sophie's choice. You got 2 kids, you can protect one, the other one's going to die. So I guess what I'm getting at is how we make hard choices. What is the analysis, and what is the emotional commitment to the choice that you eventually do make?
I made a lot of choices based on, in the past, I made a lot of choices based on instant gratification. If not instant gratification, how I would look to other people. So maybe I didn't do a great job of being a great friend, and when other people abandoned a friendship, I abandoned it too. And as I got older, that's hard for me to live with that, knowing that I sold out on friends and didn't stand up because it was easier to judge and go with the other crowd. I've done that. So the people that do it, I have compassion for them because I lived that. And I just didn't like who I was. When I was by myself and in those quiet moments, you know, the you that's not being, that's able to show up because you don't have all this other stuff distracting you, like people laughing and joking, or whether it's drinking and partying, or you're busy with work and some kind of task. It's just you and that voice in the morning, or when you look in the mirror and it's just you and those thoughts. I didn't, you know, it was like, dude, you're like, you know, like really? Like, that's how you show up as a friend. So I've had to go back and apologize to those people that I let down, man. And man, what an opening and clearing it was. So those things, because they were important to me, I made some choices that I wouldn't make today because I cared so much about, ego was running the show, basically. Now, what would help me make that choice between a strong, beautiful friendship that gives me so much in family members, it would be which relationship is nurturing to me, which relationship is helping me grow, which relationship is, they're playing a big game. You know, it could be a different game that they're playing, like I care about, you know, helping the world, the community, humankind. Their game could be something different, you know, completely different, nothing like the one I care about. They just want to, you know, plant a garden and plant the best garden at home they can, whatever the case may be. If they are on this path for transformation and self-mastery, and they're not vindictive or gossip, and, you know, they just care about being loving, that's what go into the factor that I would choose. There's no question, and that's how I live my life now, man. Everybody that I got in my life right now, dude, are you kidding me right now? Loving, non-judgmental, like completely give to me, hold me up, hold me down. We do that for each other. We're open. Like that's how I live now. That's why I'm where I am right now.
It's almost like when you get into that group, a group like that, where you're lucky enough to experience that. I think it's the old idea that all life is the same, and you can really feel that when there's no judging, and that you feel totally comfortable with another person. It's like you and I have one mind in a way, and this is a little bit metaphysical, but
it's true.
But it's true. It's like there's one life force. We're just having a different version of that life force, and it's the same. If you took that principle and extended it to the entire universe, that's what you can come up with. Some Russian who's 10,000 miles away is really part of the same life force that grows my eyebrows and my fingernails, and yours as well, and his as well. That same life force we have in common. And I would go a little step further and say that most everything after that life force is unimportant. It's just not. It's just not important.
It's not.
You know, if you could be just so thrilled that you're alive and that you're having this experience of life, boy, it's very easy to let go of, you know, the BMW and the big house and, you know, a big bank account with lots of zeros.
And care what people think.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and remember, you know, I think a lot of people invest in that because it has to do with security. Like, you know, you hear people say, well, they only have X dollars in the bank, and you think, my God, if I had that much in the bank, I'd never work again, or whatever. But people are always striving for security, and there is no security. Sorry, there ain't.
Yeah, that's it.
So you might as well just enjoy your life and be grateful and praise the life force that you have within you.
Yeah. So, okay, last question. This is for you.
Okay, cool.
So, how did you get to this point to where the significant other, the person that you're with, that they are not responsible for making you happy or completing you? And how did you get to the point? You know, a lot of people in a relationship, you know, when the relationship is going through a challenge, they're upset with the other person, like, you know, is your, you know, you don't seem to have that thing for me, like the other person's supposed to make you happy. Mm-hmm. And if you're not happy, it's their fault and they're not doing something wrong. Were you ever that way? And if you were, how did you move away from that to, you know, and are you happier now that you don't have that going on?
Wow. Well, boy, that's a whole other show, I think. But here it is in brief. I was that way, and I was very concerned about how pretty she was and how she made me look good, and that whole trophy syndrome. I was definitely there. I was the husband in that kind of scenario, and it wasn't very fulfilling. But the reason why it doesn't work is because anything that requires the external of you, not the internal, but the external of you, the illusory person of you, anything that requires an expectation to be fulfilled is a dead end. You know, all of
So by someone else or something, if it's outside of you to make you whole, then it's an illusion.
It's an illusion, and it's going to cause you pain. It's going to cause you pain.
Like, you got to be clear on that.
That's right. It's not like, it looks great, you know, it's just like eating nails, okay? I mean, if there was some way to sweeten nails and you ate them, the nails would still be bad for you and they would come back to haunt you. That's the way expectation works. If you have an expectation that this has to happen for me to be happy, she has to be a certain way for me to feel good as a man, those expectations are going to bite you in the butt. The expectation is going, the loss of the expectation, or the not having of the fulfillment of the expectation, is going to be enormously painful. And what right do you have to make expectations of anyone, of life? You know, the world doesn't owe you anything, neither does the one you love. And I think the big problem in the West, I think, with this idea of romantic love is that there is some notion that I am incomplete and my lover is going to complete me. No, you're complete. Whether you're broken or we're all broken, but whether you're complete or not is not somebody else's responsibility. That's yours, and you can't expect somebody else to fulfill that for you. So those are the lessons that I learned. So that's a lot more freeing for me because I don't have any expectations, or I try not to. I still have them, but I realize what they are. I monitor them and get rid of them and take that pressure away from myself and from her. And I think she does the same. The woman that I'm involved with now is not interested in me fulfilling her expectations, and I hope I'm not trying to fulfill mine with her, but I think we still have a great time together, and we still share love, just like
Right.
you and I and all of the folks in our group. And when you take expectation out, I think good things happen.
Perfect, Rick. So I'm sure we'll have more questions to come in future shows, man. Thank you for sharing that. It's so insightful. I'm going to take what you've taught me here, and I'm going to apply it to my life, man, like I always do.
Oh, baby, no, listen.
I am.
Everybody's got different slices of this, and you guys may have a whole different take on this, and argue with it. When you hear us talk, argue with us, or send in points of view that we haven't considered. There's nothing wrong with alternative ways of looking at life. These are just a couple of ways that we think have worked for us, or individually for each of us. But for you, that may be a totally different gig, and you may struggle with this stuff, and that's cool. That's the point of having discussions like this. Take out your feelings, look at them, and see if they're working for you. That's the end of the day. That's at the end of the day. Do you have inner peace? Do you feel like you're in the right road? Do you love yourself? That's the test. If you do, stick with what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick.
Hey, buddy, I love you.
I love you too, man. Thank you.